webinar every last weekend of the month. All right, so I'll be talking about what we do at ID Analytics. ID Analytics is a data analytics company where we empower individuals and organizations to harness the transformative power of data through tailored training and consulting, ensuring they thrive in today's analytics-driven landscape. So if you're a data analyst or a beginner or you're an expert, you're looking to brush up your skills, or you're an organization that uses data to power your business, you are at the right place. So at ID Analytics, we do consultation for companies while we help individuals grow and expand their data analytics. So I'll be introducing our speaker for today, Mr. Hakeem Hussein. He is a senior BI developer. Mr. Hakeem is a senior developer with First Bank Nigeria. He is a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft certified data analyst associate with over 7 years of experience across financial, retail, and enterprise analytics. He specializes in Power BI, DAX, and the full Microsoft modern data stack, and has led large-scale business report build and platform migration. So we have Mr. Hussein in the house today. So he's going to be running us in the next 1 hour through his wealth of experience in Power BI and DAX and everything that has to do with data analytics. So join me to welcome Mr. Hakeem Hussein as I hand over the mic to him. Mr. Hakeem, you have the floor now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's good to have a lot of colleagues and on the call. As you guys know, I am also a learner like you too. But for today, they have I'll just be spearheading the learning process. So what we're going to be doing today is more of a collaborative work. So we're going to be engaging each other and be learning from each other. I'm also open to learning from everyone here. Yeah, so that will be all from me. Before we get into the conversation, right, without spending much time, right, do we have anyone on this call that has written any form of DAX code before? Have you ever written any DAX, even if it's as simple as a song? Have you ever written DAX before? And on which Microsoft stack have you done that? Is it Power BI? Is it Excel? Okay. Do you want to unmute your mic and talk to me? Let's discuss. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm also following up in the chat. So I'm saying you can just type in the chat if you've ever written. Okay, Power BI. Mr. Agbeya Abayomi said in Power BI. Madam Messi also said in Power BI, right? Good to know. Good to know. All right. So without wasting much of our time, let me just share my slide, right? So I'm just going to share my slide. I've already been introduced before. Please confirm that you can see my screen. Okay, so I have been duly introduced, so I'm not going to take much of your time with the introduction any longer. My name is Hakeem, and like I've said, I'm a senior BI developer with First Bank Nigeria. And so let's just move on to the main conversation for the day. So for today, we are looking at introducing you to writing your first DAX. So we're assuming that everybody that is here don't know how to write DAX, including myself, right? And what we're going to be doing is that we're going to take ourselves on the journey on understanding the key concepts of DAX. Now, what is DAX? Okay, that's where we should start from, right? DAX is an abbreviation for data analysis expressions. Okay, DAX is an abbreviation for data analysis expression, and DAX is a series of syntax that we use in expressing our data, that we use in expressing business context within our data. Okay, so what does that mean, right? It means that the business has certain requirements that they expect us to give. We have the data set, right? We have the sales data set, but the business wants to see certain information from that data set that the business has. So what do? We leverage DAX to do what? To help the business express themselves. Oh, this is our sales for the year. This is our performance for the month. This is how much we have sold on a averagely in a day, in a week. This is how much we sell. What are we doing? We are expressing the position of sales of the business, right? And all of this we can achieve using DAX. Okay? How we are going to go today, right? We're going to go through what is the foundation of DAX, right? What is the foundation of DAX? And from there, we're going to look at the foundation. And from there, we are going to, and then we're going to look at, from the foundation, we're going to look at aggregate functions. Then we'll introduce ourselves a little bit to calculate, right? And then we'll look at filter context. If we have time, we're going to look at iterators and then practice. Okay? So, because like they say, practice makes perfect. All right. So, what basically is the foundation of DAX? The foundation of DAX fall within the architecture of what? Of three things. Okay? It falls within the architecture of three things, basically. And that is the calculated column, measure, and calculated table. For now, I will say, let us leave calculated table out of the conversation, right? At a more advanced level, we are going to look at calculated. But for today, let us focus on calculated column and measure. So what is a calculated column, right? And in order for us to understand what we want to do today, right? Please confirm that you can still see my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, fantastic. All right. In order for us to understand what we mean by calculated column and measure, right, we are going to, let us take a look at the model that we're going to be using today. Okay? Can anyone tell me what kind of model I have? Can anyone tell me the kind of model that I have? The kind of model and the kind of relationship that I have here? Anyone? Give it a shot. There are no bad answers. Let me say that. Anybody?
I can't see the part you are showing. I'm only seeing calculated tables, measures, calculated columns. So I don't know, maybe that's what you want us to answer.
Okay, all right. So hold on. Let me just bring this on screen. Can you see this now?
I can't see it. I can only see what is that and where does it live. That's what I'm seeing here. I don't know.
Okay, all right. All right. I guess, let me see. Okay. So here's my screen. I'm using. Okay. All right. I guess you should be able to see my screen now. Okay. Are we good? Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. So what kind of model is it that we have?
Should I say like a star schema, one-to-many relationship? That I can
Fantastic.
say.
Fantastic. That's basically what we have. What we have is a simple star schema model, right? And we have a one-to-many relationship between our tables. And the reason why we need to understand what is happening in the model, because someone might be asking, are we not talking about DAX? What is about model again, right? The key, the foundation of everything that you are going to write as far as DAX is concerned is dependent on your model. And we always say this, right? Or the senior people always say that the simpler, right, your model is, the more constructive your model is. Let me use the word. The more constructive your model is, the easier it is for you to the kind of DAX measure that are going to write, right? If you have a very complicated model, trust me, you are going to struggle when you are also writing your DAX, your DAX, right? So what we have here is basically 3 tables. Let me explain that. We have a product table, right? And on the product table, we have 5 columns, right? So let's go and look at the columns that we have on our product table. We have the product ID, we have the product name, we have the category of the product, we have the unit costs, right? And then we have the unit price, okay? What is the unit cost? I'm sure everyone understands product name, product ID, and category, but let us look at the unit cost. The unit cost is the amount it costs us for one product. So this coffee bean that falls under the category of beverage, it cost us 26.3 naira, okay, in order for us to make that product, whether we're a manufacturing company or we're also shipping it. It cost us, the unit cost for one of that product is 26.3, and the price that we are selling it, right, is what? Is 37.35, right? Is 37.35. So that is the price that we are selling it, okay? Or that's the price that we have tagged it. It might not be the price that we are selling it, okay? After that, let's look at the sales, right? So the sales table simply is simple. It contains the sales ID, right? It contains the order dates, right? That means the day the customer made the order, the dates. It contains the product ID, right, which tells us the product that we sold. So for example, if I take this 102, if I come to my product table and I look for 102, oh, I see 102 is sparkling water, okay? So that is basically what is connecting both tables together. Then we have the region, and then we have the quantity of that order. So the quantity that the customer ordered, rather. Okay, so this is basically what our model looks like. And then for our date table, is just a simple table. We have a date, we have the year, we have the month, and then we have the index. Okay, so the index basically is a column that I'm using to sort the month, because if you create a month column in Power BI, the months are being sorted in alphabetical order. So I just trick Power BI, right, to tell it that, no, don't sort my month for me now, because if I say sort it in alphabetical order, then the first month I will see will be April, right? So I'm using the index column to do what? To sort my month, and that's what's going to give me that January, February that I want. So basically, this is what we are going to be working with, right? Okay, so now that we are here, we are talking about what? We are talking about calculated column. Okay, we're talking about calculated column. And we said that a calculated column is a column. How do we define calculated column? It is a column that is not part of our original data set. It wasn't part of our original data set. However, it is needed in order for us to do some computation in our model. So it is a column that was not part of our original data set, and we need it in order for us to be able to express whatever it is or in our model, right? A measure, on the other hand, is a formula that we write, and measures are written on demand. They are written on demand, and they do not add to the size of our model. When you create a calculated column, it increases the size of your model, right? Especially when you have a model that has high cardinality, right? What we mean by cardinality is when we have the two relationships that you have, you know, the one-to-many. If you have a many-to-many relationship, in that kind of context, if you create a calculated column, it sort of add more weight to your file, right? A measure, on the other hand, doesn't add much weight to your data. It makes everything sort of simple for you, okay? So that's basically what we are going to look at. Now, the column, one of the golden rules, right? One of the golden rules is that it is only when you know that whatever it is that you want to calculate, right? Whatever it is that you are calculating in DAX, your first go-to should always be a measure. Your first go-to should always be a measure, right? It is only when a measure cannot suffice, that is when you can now do what? You can now go into the calculated column route, okay? Now, if you look at this that we have here, we are creating a calculated column that is subtracting the unit price from the unit costs, okay? And we said that you should only use this. Use when you need a value to slice or filter at the row level attribute, at the row level attribute, okay? Now, what does this mean? What does this mean for us? What this means is that you should only use a calculated column, because whatever calculation that you do in a calculated column, it does it row by row. Let me show you what I mean, right? With a very quick example. So I'm going to come to my product table. I'm going to come to my product table, right? And you can see that on my product table, I have how many columns? I have 1, I have 2, I have 3, I have 4, I have 5, right? I want to do something, right? I don't know what to call this yet, so I'm just going to call this, let's say, PF, okay? And what I'm going to say is, take my unit price. So I'm just going to say unit price. Now, in DAX, when you are calling a column, right, you can reference the table that column is coming from. Why is that? The reason is because there are instances where a column might appear in different tables, and you have many tables in your model, right? And that same column is appearing on those different table, right? So that needs to understand, if I say the unit cost, which unit cost am I talking about, right? So I'm going to say, go to my product table, right? And take the unit price, right? Take the unit price. And what I want you to do is take the unit price and subtract it. Look at, I am calling on the column. I'm going to say minus, take the unit price and subtract it from the, I don't need to type the product name every time. I can just type the name of the column that I want, right? So you see the way I type unit, right? It has brought out all the column. What is happening here? We call it intelligence, right? It's the ability for the engine to try and figure out, okay, this person is typing unit. What does he want exactly, right? That's called intelligence. Okay, so I'm going to say, take the unit price and subtract it from my unit cost. Okay, and if I commit to this, right? If I commit to this, right? What I'm going to have, right, is our profit. Okay, what I'm going to have is our profit. So what this means is that for coffee bean, right, the profit we made is 11 naira 5 kobo. Okay, right? So let me rename this, and I'll just call this profit, like so. Okay, what we have done now, what we just did now, is called what? It's called a calculated column. It's called what? It's called a calculated column. Now, I am going to do the same thing, right? But this time around, instead of using the calculated column approach, I'm going to use another approach. I'm going to use the measure approach. Okay. For this one, you see, when I wanted to create this, what did I click on? I clicked on new column. I have another table here called measures. And for those that don't know, right, whenever you are working in a model, right, you want to make sure that you have a dedicated column where you store all the formulas that are going to be writing. Why? It sort of organizes your formulas. That is one. Two, it keeps your work clean. Three is that whenever you are working, it's easy for you to track back. Since I know that all my measures are written inside this measure table, right? I can easily go into that place and then just look for it. Okay. So I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say new measure. Right. So now I want to use the measure to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to call this profit. I'm going to call this profit. And I'm going to say what I want you to do is, so let's call this profit, right? I'm going to say take the unit cost. So you see, I'm typing it again. Right. Now, what I have here is that what you can see now currently is that as I'm typing, I cannot find the column that I want. Why do you think that is? Can anyone tell me why I cannot find that? Why I cannot find this table? Can anyone tell me? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. All right. So, okay. I'll hear you.
Okay, so I think the reason the column is not coming up is because you are not starting with the function it's supposed to, I don't know, the function first before. Yeah, I think that's it.
Fantastic. So the reason why that is not happening is because if you are writing a measure, right? If you're writing a measure, you need to start your measure with whatever you want the measure to do. So, for example, if I come back into my measure now, right? If I come back into my measure now and I type something like sum, right? And then if I go and do unit cost, now you see that I'm able to see it. But initially, I was trying to reference a column, right? I was trying to reference a column inside the measure, right? And that is not allowed. And these are rookie mistakes that beginners make, right, when trying to write DAX. So you see that I can really not go this route, right, in order for me to achieve the same thing. There are other ways to which I can do this, right? I can use some other function in order for me to be able to achieve that, right, which we are going to explore at the pretty much later time. Okay, but one thing that you have learned, right, our key takeaway from this current conversation that we are having is that whenever you are writing a calculated column, right, the calculation that is giving us this final output, it is happening row by row. There's a row context inside this. And what does row context mean? Row context simply means that Power BI the DAX engine or the Power BI engine would go row by row to do this calculation. So it will take 26.3, right? It will subtract it from this, it will give you this, it will take this, it will keep going row by row to compute all of these answers for you, right? And like I've said before, whenever you create a calculated column, it adds into your model. Okay, so now let us take another approach, right? So for this, I'm going to now write the measure that will help us calculate what we just did now. So I'm going to call this profit, right? I'm going to call it profit. Okay, and now I'm going to use a function, right? Hold on, I'm going to explain this function in detail at a later time, but just to show you that you only use a calculated column at extreme situations. If you can DAX your way out of it, right? I personally prefer to just DAX my way out of situations. I really avoid using calculated columns, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a function called SUMX. And SUMX there are various categories of function in DAX. I must say that. And SUMX fall under a category of function that we call iterators, right? We call them iterators. Why? Because this function, what they do, anytime you see an X behind the function, all of those functions in DAX that has X behind them, they are called iterators, right? And what they do is they have the ability to go inside the column, right? And then they go inside the table and they can move row by row, just the same way a calculated column does, right? The iterators can also do that, right? So what I'm going to do in this context is the table that both of my column exist is my product table, right? So I'm going to say, take my product table, right? And then I'll put a comma, right? And then I can do Shift Enter to move to the next line. One of the reasons why I love to do or write my syntax this way is that my syntax is clean. Where there is an error, it is easy for me to easily identify where my error is. So I'm going to say, go to my product table, right? Take my unit price, same thing that we did before, right? Take my unit price and subtract it from my unit cost. Okay? Once you do this, whatever the outcome is, look at what I'm saying. I'm saying take the unit price and the unit cost, right? So go row by row, do all those calculations that I did in the calculated column. Whatever you now have at the end of the day, I need you to sum it up for me. Sum everything up for me. So if I hit enter on my keyboard, right, I can't see what is happening until I drag this and I just put it on my canvas. Okay? So I drag this and I put it on my canvas, and you see that my profit is calculated at 355 naira 0.44 kobo or 0.44 kobo. Okay, how can we verify that what we have done is right? Since what we did here is exactly the same thing like what we did in our calculated column. So it means that if we also take this profit in our calculated column and we bring it here, right, and we sum all of these numbers together, then we are expected to get the same thing. Now, but you see where the complexity arrives, right? Because I calculated this column, if I bring it out here, right, I have to do what we call an implicit calculation, right? So that means I have to tell the DAX engine to do the sum for me. So I'm telling Power BI now to do the sum for me. Meanwhile, once I just wrote my formula and I brought it out, you see that it has given me exactly what it is that I want. Okay, so this that I did here, what I have done is called an implicit calculation. It's a kind of calculation in DAX that it is the DAX engine that is doing the aggregation for you. And one of the disadvantages of this, right, is that I cannot recall this thing again, right? Whenever you are working in an organization, there's what we call base formulas or base measures, right? And those base measures are your foundation to the bigger things that you are going to do. So for example, as I've calculated this profit now, let's say I want to calculate profit for last year, right? When I'm writing my measure, I can not, if I don't have this, if I take this out, let's assume that I don't have this, right? I cannot reference this profit I cannot reference a calculated column. I still have to go and write another measure that will aggregate this for me, you know, all those complexities, right? And that's not what we want as beginners of DAX, right? So what you want to do at every instance is that you want to always make sure that whenever you are working in an organization on a project, whether it's a personal project that you are developing or anything, always make sure that you go the easy route. And I tell you, and I kid you not, DAX is not easy, but once you dedicate your time into learning DAX and you familiarize with it, I'm telling you, it's like one of the best things that can happen to you. And it sets you apart from a whole lot of other, you know, Power BI developer, data analyst, and all of that. Okay? So now that we know, before we move forward, do we now understand the difference between calculated columns and measures? Do we get that? Fantastic. I'm seeing some thumbs up. I need two more people that understand it. Two more people. Okay, someone has a question. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, sir. I just want to verify if when using the iteration, that's the sum x, is it going to show on the column? That's the calculated column. Is it going to show on the table column?
No, so the measure is not going to show on the column, right? Again, let me explain something. When you look at the one that I wrote with a measure, you can see that it looks like the design, the icon in front of it, it looks like a calculator, right? It looks like a calculator, Abi.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if you look at the one that I have down here, which is my profit, you can see that it looks like, you know, the design is kind of different, right? So anytime you see something that looks like a calculator like this, you need to put it in a chart, right? You need to put it in a chart in order for you to be able to see the number that is returning. That does not take away from the fact that you can use the sum x function inside the column. You can use it. You can use it to create a calculated column. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not that it is a function that only works with measure. No, you can use it to create a calculated column, right? But in this context, because I'm trying to show you what the difference between a calculated column and a measure is, that's why I have, you know, I have used it in this context. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, sir.
Does it?
Thank you, sir.
All right, all right. Any other person that has a question before we move to the next item? Okay, so now that we know the difference between a DAX function, a calculated column, and measure, let's go to the categories of functions that we have. Okay, and we have a very extensive categories of function, right? So we have the aggregate function, we have date and time function, we have filter functions, we have logical functions. There are so many functions, right? But I don't mean to scare you. You don't need to know all of these functions. As a matter of fact, I want to dash you people something. I don't know if you guys know it before, but there's a website that you can go to, right? That you can use to help yourself, whether you are looking for a function or maybe you want to explore new functions, you want to test certain things. That website is called dax.guide. Okay? You can type it on your laptop if you are connected. It's called dax.guide, right? When you go to that site, what you are going to see, let me see if I can pull it up on my screen. Give me a second. Let me drag this here. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So this is what the site looks like. It is just a site that contains the DAX function, and it is usually updated. It's usually updated. You can see that the last update that they did here is the last site update will happen June 3 of 2026. So it's kind of updated. It's owned by the legends in the game, Alberto Ferrari and Marco Russo, right? They are the guys from SQL BI, and for anyone within the DAX, that is a Power BI developer or a Power BI analyst that does not know these two people, I don't think you know what you are doing. Okay, but anyway, right, these two guys are the fathers of the language. Like they've gone in depth of the language, of the DAX language, that it's they have so much knowledge. And thank God for us as Power BI analysts and developers that they've come up with something like this for us. As you begin to grow your analytical journey and you begin to use certain functions over and over and over again, you probably don't need to use them, right? And then, some of your friends, your colleague can also tell you about a DAX function. I'll share a quick story with you guys. A couple of years ago, I was working on a project and I wanted to do, I was trying to do a calculation and I couldn't just figure it out. That was in my early days, right? I had a friend, his name is Abdul Jalil, and I just went to him that, oh, this is what I'm trying to do, I don't know this. And he said, have you had, you can use the function contain string? And I was like, is there a function called contain string? Okay, so then I already had this site, but I didn't even know about it, right? So I just came here and I did a search and I did contents. Okay, I just did contents. Okay, and you can see that I can see contain string, right? Because, and what it does is that it's going to tell you what exactly the text, what it does, what you need to provide it, and all those kind of things. So it kind of makes your job very easy. All you need to do is to implement the description that is here. As a matter of fact, if you go down this way, you are still going to see examples of how you can use this. Okay, so that is basically how this site works. And that was a learning curve for me, was the ability, I learned something new and I got to know that something like that existed. So there are certain functions that till you finish your analytical career, you might not even use them at all, right? So you don't need to bug yourself with trying to know all of these formulas, right? The only thing is, whatever you want to do, during the process you begin to learn and you see some other you learn some functions that are there. Okay, so let's go back to our page. So you can see that in this, right, we have different categories of function. We have text functions, we have aggregate functions, we have logical functions. When we talk about logical functions, there are functions that has to do with true or false, right, or multiple logic, right? Whenever you see yourself asking if something happens to something, this is what you should do, that's already a logical reasoning, right? You are looking at the business in a logical way, and you need to know that you need to deploy logical functions. There are functions that we use to evaluate logics, right? So you can look at bit, and I've never even had, for example, I think this is even the first time I'm seeing bit and, right? But I know of and, I know of false, I know collies, I know if error, I know switch, because these are functions that I have used before. I know not, I know true. Some of these functions as well, from different platforms, they are interwoven, right? There are functions from SQL that also, you can also use them. They also appear here and they do similar things, okay? So we're looking at aggregate functions. Aggregate functions are functions that we use in summarizing our data, okay? So there are functions that we use to summarize our data. Let's look at some examples. We're going to look at maybe just 4 of them. So you can see we have all of these aggregate functions. So you can see you have mean, you have max A, you have max, and all of that, right? I told you before that anytime you see an X behind a function, it means that that function is an iterator. It has the ability to go inside your data, and then look for what is happening. So what this means is that with this average X function now, I can now do a calculation to find what is the average profit, you know, and what is it going to do? What is average going to do? Average is going to go inside your data. It will sum all your profit together, right? It will now count all the profit that you have. So let's say I have 1, 2, 3, right? And I say average of 1, 2, 3. So it will take 1, add it to 2, add, that is 3. 3 plus 3 will give us 6, and then it will divide it by 3, right? So that's an average, right? And that's what, you know, average X is going to do. Basically, it's going to iterate over your table, and then it will give you an average. And we're going to see it practically, right? So let's go back to our Power BI desktop, right? So what we want to do is we want to explore some basic DAX functions, right? The first on our list is sum, okay? And we're going to call this total. Let's call this total, or let's just call it cost, right? Let's not stress ourselves. Cost, okay? In order for us to get our cost, we need to sum all the costs together, because we want to know how much together did we send, how much together did we does it cost us to do, you know, to sell or for all our products, how much is the cost? So what we're going to do is I'm going to say sum, go to my product table, right? And then take my unit cost, because unit cost means it is the cost of one unit of that product. So when I say sum all the unit cost, so you take the unit cost for all of those products and it will aggregate everything together. And that's why we call it an aggregate function. I'm going to click enter. Like I said again, when you write syntax in DAX, right? When you write a measure, you are not going to be able to see that measure until you put it where? Until you put it in a chart. So the chart I'm currently using is called a card visual. We use it to show just one numbers, right? Just one number at a time. But at an advanced level, you can show many numbers again. So to every rule, right? I think they use this in law so much. To every rule, there's always an exception, right? And that also happens in Power BI as well. Okay, they'll tell you don't use bi-directional relationship, but there are instances where you are working and bi-directional relationship is what works for you, right? So to every rule there's an exception, but you just have to make sure you stick to the basic principles all the time. If you don't have that concrete knowledge, you don't want to do things, especially as we begin our journey as data analysts. So as we begin to grow, we are going to learn. Trust me, don't feel intimidated by all of this, right? You know, it took us time in order for us to get here, and I'm sure that with time, some of us are also going to be better than this. Okay, so this is our cost. The total cost that we have is 471 naira. So I can decide to format this. So let's say I want to use dollar. I don't want to use naira, for example, because I don't like naira. I'm a dollar boy. Okay, so in case you want to pay me, you can decide to thank you very much. You can decide to pay me. I don't know what I've been mentioning naira since. I like dollar so much. Okay, so we can always do our formatting, right? So we can just say that we want to format this in dollars, okay? Because we're dollar people, we don't do naira. Or is there anybody that prefer naira to dollar here? Let us know, please. You prefer naira to dollar? I've seen somebody, Mr. Emmanuel. Okay, thank you very much. We will put your name on the list. When we are sharing dollar, we will not add you. Anyway, so that's basically how we write our cost measure, right? So applying this knowledge, right? Since we already know how to write sum, let's do the remaining thing. So let's look at what is our average cost, right? On the average, how much does it cost us, for a product? We're just going to do new measure, and we're going to say average, right? And we're going to just say average costs. Okay. And for this, I'm just going to say average of my unit costs. And then I will hit enter. And then when I bring this here, I see that our average cost is $23.56, please. $23.56. For Naira people, will get back to you later. Anyway, let's moving forward. So we can take it one step further. Let's look for what is the minimum cost and what is the maximum cost. Like the minimum product that cost us and the maximum product that, or the minimum cost of our product and the maximum cost of our product, right? So we're just going to do new measure. So I'm going to call this minimum, or I'm just going to say min costs. And for these, I'm going to deploy the minimum function. And to use the minimum function, I'm just going to say min, right? Min function. So min function, I need to provide it with same thing. So I can just say my cost column, right? I can use my cost column. So you see that in this context, I can even reference a measure that I've already written before, right? You can see that when I type cost, right, it is telling me that I can even reference a measure. You see, a column name or Scala 1, right? So, but let's just leverage this. I will just put this there, and then I will hit enter. Our minimum cost is going to be $3.01. For our maximum cost, we are just going to say max costs, and we are going to say max of our unit cost again. So we close, and then we can deploy this on our chart as well. Okay, and you can see that we have this. We can test our minimum and maximum. For the average, it means that we have to do a manual calculation, look at all our costs, count the number of rows, which can take time. But for the minimum and maximum, we can test that. How can we test it? We'll come to our product table, right? We'll go to our unit cost, and then we'll sort it. I don't even need to sort, right? Look at the top. You can see that the minimum number that is at the top here, look at it, 3.01. You see that we are correct, right? If you look down as well, you see that the maximum amount that we have here is what? Is 38.37. So that tells us that we are correct, and we're already, you can start raising our shoulder that we are now DAX experts. Okay? So these are aggregate functions. And basically, we are just going to slow down here and take some questions from some of us. Does anyone have any question that they want us to look at? Any question? Any question before we move forward? Any question? Any question? If you have a question, you can unmute your mic and let us discuss. Like I said, we're just discussing. Any question? I'm also going through the chat to see if there are anything that has been dropped. Maybe while I was presenting, I missed anything. Okay, please go ahead. Good evening.
Yes, thank you. Okay, it's not on what we just discussed. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, thank you. So this afternoon I was trying to do a ZHI demographic or something. So I was trying to write the DAX. It was giving me error. So the DAX, there was at this bottom, then there's this error message. The DAX something was giving me, saying that cannot carry. I don't know how to explain it. Saying that I can either use value or format. But later on, while I was trying to do it, I figured out that my age was in the data type was in text. So I had to go and change it before I was able to use switch. So at what point can I use value and format? I don't know if you get my question.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so basically what you are trying to do is that you were trying to create a measure, right? And then um you discovered that the error you are getting is that you should use value of format. Okay, so what that simply
Yes.
means, you see, one thing about Power BI is what you see is what you get. Because Power BI knew, right, that you are referencing a text column while using an aggregate function. So, for example, if I say go and sum a column that contains name, for example, now. So let me share my screen and let us see that, because that's why we're here, the opportunity for us to learn, right? So I'm going to say, so let me share my screen and let me come share. So that error that you are getting, right? I'm also going to get it now. So I'll say new measure, right? I'm not going to give it a name because I'm just testing. So I'll say sum, and then some customer, I'll just come and say, let's say product category. Is our product category a text column or a name column? Let me look for a column that, okay. In fact, let me use product name. Okay. So if I use a column that is supposed to be a text column, right? I use a column that is supposed to be a text column where I'm supposed to reference a number column. So DAX is now telling me that I should format it, and I should use values or formats. What does that mean? That means that with the values or format function, I can change the state of the format. It means that I can format a column that is in text, right, to return it as number, because it sees that what I'm trying to do does not make sense, right? And that's why it is telling you what to do. So sometimes, which is a very good thing, is that whenever you are working with DAX, always pay attention to the errors that you get. The errors will always help you. All you need to do is to understand the context of that error. So because it sees that, you are giving it a column that is not represented in the proper data format, and that's why we always say that one of the key things that you should always do as data analysts is to always make sure that your data types are set correctly. If your data type are not set correctly, you are going to miss out on a lot of things. Okay, so for example, for me now, I did something like some products. I hope you can see my screen. Am I still sharing?
No.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Let me get back. All right. So for us now, I wrote a syntax called measure, right? If I put this on my canvas, you see what I get? I get an error. If I look at the details of the error, it's telling me that failed to move a data reorder to the move rows, whatever. No error fetches this data. So basically, it's just telling me that, whatever it is that I'm writing, I cannot do an aggregation on a name column, right? So always pay attention to your errors. Very good. Thank you for that question. That has also opened us to another learning opportunity. Always pay attention to your errors. Fantastic. Do we have any other question before we move to something else? Right now, the next thing that we're going to look at, and that is probably going to be where we're going to stop today. I hope that we are able to spend more time together so we can, talk about other things, right? And that is the father of all functions in DAX. And the father of the functions in DAX is called calculate. Okay, and since we have already learned that there is a site that we can go and learn DAX function, right? Can we leverage that site? Can we leverage it? Let's leverage it. So I want somebody to check and tell me, what do you find about calculate from your end? What have you found about calculate? So I'm going to do a search and I'm going to say calculate. Okay, so I look at it here. I have it. Does anyone else have it? Does anyone else have it? Okay, so calculate is the father of all DAX functions. And why do we call it the father of all DAX functions? It's because it allows us to be able to modify, right? To modify context, right? It evaluates an expression in a context that you modify with filters. Okay, let's take a very good look at our model. Let's create a simple table, right? So I'm going to say, come to my product table, give me all the region on my product table, right? I love to use tables a lot, so I'll put this on a table, and then I will say, give me the unit price. Okay, or let's go and use this our profit. So I just put this profit here. Okay, so I cannot use this profit. Can anyone tell me why I cannot use this profit? Can anyone try to tell me why? Why am I getting the same number across all my region? Anybody? If you answer correctly, I can maybe, if maybe we can send you to Abu Dhabi or Maldives. I said maybe, before somebody will say, where is their Maldives? Okay, so the reason why, okay, please go ahead. Sorry.
It is not collected and the model.
Okay, fantastic. Because the product, the column I'm referencing, right, is coming from the filter side, right? And this naturally is supposed to filter this table, right? But what I'm trying to do is that I'm referencing a column that is in the sales table, right? Where my calculation is coming from the profit table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write another syntax, right? I'm going to write another syntax that is going to calculate my sales for me. For this one, I don't know. Try and follow me. I'm going to call this profit 2. Okay? Because I have had a problem now and I want to fix that problem, right? So I want something to happen. So I'm going to say that what I want to do is that I want to calculate my profits. But in this case, I know that I need an information from the sales table. Okay, so I'm going to use some X. I'm going to use some X, right? And I'm going to say I want to pick on my quantity table, or even, yes, I can do that. I can do some X, okay? And I want my quantity table. So I'm going to say quantity, or let me pick my sales table. Okay. And basically what I want is that I want to do a calculation that will calculate my my profit for me. But what I want to achieve with that is that when you are doing this profit calculation for me, I want you to in a context that it is going to respect, in a context that it is going to respect the new calculation that we want to do. Okay, so basically let us explore something very, very quick. Okay, so I'm going to say I want to take my sales column. Sorry, let me just quickly format this. Okay, so I want to take my sales column, and what I want to do is that I want you to go to and take my quantity column from that table. Okay, take the quantity column. So I'm going to say take the quantity column from this table, and what I want you to do with this quantity table is that I want you to multiply whatever you have from that quantity table. I'll open a bracket and I will use a function called related. Okay, so what am I doing basically? I want you to take each quantity, find the corresponding unit price and unit cost, subtract unit price and unit cost, right? And then whatever you have, I want you to multiply it by the quantity. Okay, so I'm going to say related of the products, right? Of the products unit price. Okay, and then I'm going to do a minus, and I will say related of my products unit costs. Okay, and whatever you have, I want you to give me an output. So if I take this and I put this here, right, you see that this is what I am going to get. So in this context, I can now use this, right? So if I take that our initial region, and then I take this our new and I put it here, you see that the value I am going to get is now completely different. So I'm seeing different amounts for all of my region. Okay, so I know that this might seem like a complex syntax, right? But what I just want you to understand that the related function is going to use the existing relationship that exists between the sales table and the product table, and it is going to take each of the quantity and multiply it by the output of this calculation. Okay, that's why I put this in brackets. If I take this out of the bracket, I'm not going to get the right answer that I'm supposed to get. Okay, so you can see now that we have this. Now, the reason why I did this is because I want us to explore calculate quickly, right? I don't want to waste much of our time. So let's quickly look at calculate. Okay, and I said that calculate is the father of all DAX function. It allows us to be able to to express, evaluate an expression in a context that we can modify with filters. Okay, what that simply means is that we can force the engine to do a calculation for us exactly the way we want it to be. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to say I only want to calculate, let's say, profits for, let's say, South profits. Let's just call it South profits. Okay, now I'm going to do what? I'm going to say calculate, right? And look at it. You see that for every time you call on a function in DAX, right, it allows you to be able to read, it gives you a set of information that you can, also understand and help you to know what needs to be done. So the first thing that you see that I need to provide inside calculate is my expression. What am I expressing? And what I'm expressing is our profits, right? Is our profit 2. Sorry, I did not write that correctly. I wrote prefs. I don't even know what I wrote. Okay, but that's what we want, right? And then I'm going to move to filters. So what I want to do is that I want to filter, right? In fact, I don't even need to put filter there. I can just say where region, right? Where region, right, is equal to, then I'll put this in quote like this, and I will say south. So now what am I saying? I'm saying that, yes, I know you can see that this profit that we have here, right? This profit that we have here is for all of the region. But I want you to use that profit. Don't give me for everybody. Just give me only for South. Right? Just give me only for South. Again, while also respecting any filter that I have on my canvas. I'll show you what I mean quickly. So if I hit enter on my keyboard and I take this and I put it on our table, you will see that across all board, if I push this up, you see that across all board, it is ignoring every other filter for all the remaining region, and only what I can see is the profit for only the southern region. Okay, so that's what calculate allows us to do. You know, we also use calculate for time intelligence functions, you know, at a more advanced level, and I hope that we have you know, we have more time to look at some other advanced use of calculate, right? But at a beginner's level, you just need to know that the calculate allows you to be able to modify context, right? You can change the context, you know, of an expression, right? You can see that it is no more returning all the values for the region for me. It is only giving me for one particular region. I hope I have not taken too much of your time. Let us stop here for now, and hopefully we have more time to, you know, we have some other time to discuss more about DAX. If you have any question, please let me know. Any question? Any question?
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Hussein, for the insightful session. Do we have any question for Mr. Hussein before we wrap up the call?
I will not answer a question from Mr. Emmanuel, the man that likes Naira. I only answer question from dollar people.
All right, if there are no questions, all right. If there are no questions, we've come to the end of this month's webinar. All right, and I'm currently sharing my screen. I don't know if it's up yet. So we can scan the QR code to join our community. Kindly confirm if my screen is up. All right. So to join our